Hello everyone. So tonight I'll be reading out not a ghost story, a story about a witch from North Yorkshire, Anne Pearson of Gothland. Perhaps the most active witches in North Yorkshire were those of Gothland. Some families passed their witchcraft skills down from generation to generation. Anne Pearson came from one such family. Her mother and grandmother were both supposed to be witches. She lived in a decrepit cottage on the edge of the village and had the reputation of having the evil eye, an ability to harm people with a single glance. No one dared go near her hovel. Children would run away screaming, even at the mention of her name, while their parents would cross the road to avoid the old witch. As a result, Anne was a bitter and lonely old woman. It was sometime during the 19th century that Gothland's squire discovered that his daughter had fallen in love with a local farm worker. He had plans to marry her to one of his wealthy neighbours, and knowing her to be a headstrong girl, feared she would elope with the boy if he made any objection to her romance. The squire tried several ways of breaking his daughter's affection for the poor farm worker. He organised a grand ball in his house, inviting all the rich and eligible young gentlemen from miles around, hoping she would fall for one of them. He even tried to have the lad pressed into the navy, but none of these ruses worked. The squire was an educated man, and along with the other important people in the village, the doctor, the priest, the schoolmaster, etc., had always scoffed at the notion that the mad old woman who lived in the old falling down ruin at the edge of the village was a witch. So it is an indication of how desperate he was that he made his way to her cottage one evening after dark, checking behind him to make sure that no one had seen him coming. The squire knocked nervously at Anne Pearson's door. After a minute, the old woman opened it an inch or so and peered suspiciously at him. He told her he had come on business, and with one bony finger she summoned him inside. The squire looked around the single dingy room which was her home. Feeble firelight flickered over her few sticks of rotten furniture. In a corner, a few dirty blankets lay by a heap of straw, which served as the witch's bed. At this point, the squire would have done well to consider why it was that the old woman lived in such miserable circumstances, when the ignorant villagers credited her with so many powers. But his thoughts were interrupted when the old croon demanded to know what his business was. As the squire told her that he had wanted something to stop his daughter from eloping, the old croon became excited, walking up and down the room, rubbing her hands gleefully, muttering under her breath. In one corner of the room was a little wooden chest, and from it the old woman took a little bottle filled with a pale yellow liquid. She gave this to the squire and told him to add the contents to his daughter's food. The squire thrust a few guineas into the croon's hands and made his way home by quiet paths so that no one would know where he had been. At supper that night, the squire succeeded in adding the yellow liquid to his daughter's food. The following morning, he was horrified to discover that his daughter was unlikely to elope, not because she had fallen out of love as he expected, but because she had become paralysed from the neck downwards. 2 doctors were called, but neither could find a reason for her problem, and both left, shaking their heads baffled. But the choir knew the cause, and was too ashamed to tell the doctors of his visit to the witch. After pacing the house impatiently all through the day, the squire set off, as darkness fell, to see the witch again. He hammered on her door, but she would not open it to him, so he had to beg her to take off the spell through a little chink. The witch refused, dancing up and down behind the door laughing. He offered her money, threatened to beat her, but to no avail. Finally, in despair, the squire turned to go home a broken man. Soon the girl's mysterious illness was the talk of the village, and the farm worker, hearing of it, and being from an old Gothland family, immediately suspected that the cause was witchcraft, and he knew what to do. He visited a local wise man, skilled in countering the spells of witches, and told him about the girl's symptoms. The wise man gave him some tea, and afterwards told him to look at the leaves at the bottom of the cup, and asked him if he could see a face there. When the farm worker said that he thought he could see a rough likeness of Anne Pearson, the wise man nodded his head in satisfaction. The cure for the girl's troubles, according to Wiseman, was to mix some of the witch's blood with holy water, and to rub the girl's feet with it. The farm worker went home and considered what he should do. The problem was the blood. He couldn't ask Anne Pearson for some of her blood in order to break her spell, for she would be unlikely to cooperate. And besides, counter spells only worked if done secretly. Also, if he attacked her with a knife and cut her, he would probably be sent to the gall. Then he remembered that witches were known to turn themselves into hares occasionally, to go about causing mischief. So he armed himself with a shotgun and some holy water that very night, and slipped into a field by Anne's cottage, where he waited in the shadows patiently. At midnight, the biggest grey hare that he had ever seen appeared under Anne's hedge. Waiting for a few seconds to make sure he could not miss, the farm worker fired his gun, hitting the creature heavily in its back legs. The wounded animal, screeching in pain, dragged itself back under the edge, leaving a gory trail of blood smeared over the grass. The farm worker jumped up and gathered some of this blood on a handkerchief, then ran to his sweetheart's house. He climbed in through her bedroom window with the aid of a ladder, which he had hidden earlier. After waking the girl to tell her what he was doing, he poured some holy water onto the handkerchief and rubbed her feet. Immediately, her paralysis disappeared, and she was restored to full health. And now the squire's worst fear came to pass, for the ladder was then used by the couple to elope. As for Anne Pearson, she was not seen for some days after this incident. And when eventually she did appear, she was seen to be hobbling with the aid of 2 walking sticks. Bloody bandages wrapped around her hairy legs. So that's the story. I'm not too sure about it, but I thought I'd read this story out about a witch. And people think witches don't exist, don't they? But I think you'll find that all these pagans, they're all into that sort of thing as well. Yeah, I was going to do a Victorian murder, but I ended up doing this anyway. And as I said, I'm not sure about anything at the moment. There's things I came on yesterday and explained about the car. I think I'll go where I bought the last one. And and I've also got somebody that helped me out a while back. I won't go into who they are, but it was somebody off that neighbourhood site. And so I got in contact with them a while back, after all this happened, after my car was damaged and everything. I got in contact with them, and something's arranged, I'll put it that way. And when I get a car, I can park it, in their garage. They don't use the garage, so I'm going to do it that way. And I'll just pay them a small fee just to have it, once a month, so it's safe. And I won't say where it is, obviously not, but that's what'll happen anyway. So I'll say goodbye for tonight, and thanks for listening, and take care.